A tree without roots is how a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin and culture are described. Those who cannot remember their past are condemned to repeat it, as such may not understand or address their current situations. At inception, one of the major challenges of the Buhari administration was the need for a social and behavioral change. A change expected to instill the spirit of patriotism, national integration, and overall human development. These attributes were lost due to the policy inconsistency which submerged history as a subject into the social studies curriculum at the primary and junior secondary levels. A lot of concern was generated by interest and pressure groups. Today, history has been reintroduced into these levels of education in Nigeria. Considering the place of history in the development of a nation and to ensure that the removal of such a critical component of education does not repeat itself, Dateline 360 this week beams such light on this all-important subject. Good to have you join us. I'm Hawa Salihu Adama. The most effective way to destroy people is to deny or obliterate their own understanding of their history. Words of English novelist and critic George Orwell. This is Dateline 360. Thanks for rejoining us as we take a closer look at the story of history as a subject in the school curriculum in recent time and its place in addressing the challenges of globalization. Victor Azu is our lead reporter this week.
Time was when secondary school students could vividly describe the old Oyo Empire, Songhai Empire, Borno Empire, and Mali Empire with words. This was made possible in the past when history was part of the subjects in the secondary school curriculum. History, simply defined, is the study of the past. It attempts to discover, collate and interpret data or information, oral or written form, from the past, link it to the present, and adopt same for future plans. All that changed when government, in its wisdom, took a decision to delist history as a standalone subject of study in the primary and secondary schools.
History is very essential for making people understand exactly where they are from, the origins of the country, the struggles, isn't it, that led to the foundation of Nigeria as a whole, the vision of the forefathers who established this country. And I think these were issues that were missed, unfortunately, isn't it, by those who designed the curriculum at that time.
At the time, the argument in some quarters was that students were no longer attracted to the subject and not willing to pursue it as a degree course in the university. Expectedly, this gap bred a new generation of youth who could not understand the socio-political and economic realities of the country within the context of historical evolution. Now, one of the implications of not teaching history for so long is that all the children who had their basic education in Nigeria within the period had no knowledge of the past and are most likely to repeat past mistakes in the future with the same consequences, perhaps greater consequences. To appreciate the collateral damage of expunging history from the curriculum, one only needs to browse through commentaries by youths on the various social media platforms. The history of Nigeria, as recent as the June 12, 1993 debacle, not to mention the various fierce wars across the country, are most times not on the card when this generation of youths are wont to debate.
We are talking about the old generation who never had the opportunity to understand their own history, who never had the opportunity to understand how they got to even where they are as a people, as a country. And for me, that's a major, it is a major disservice to them, because there's no way, no matter what they become, whether they become doctors, lawyers, or anything, there is that particular disconnect to continue to be there.
Indeed, with history, cultural values, ethos, and civilization are preserved. Despite civilization, it is not possible to graduate from a college in some European countries without studying European history. It was therefore a relief for all those who understand the import of history when the Federal Ministry of Education recently developed its Plan on Education for Change, a ministerial strategic plan 2016 to 2019, which contains several initiatives and activities to be executed, including the disarticulation of social studies and the reintroduction of the teaching of history in primary and secondary schools. One of the issues that historians had with the teaching of the subject in the past is that teachers paid less attention to the history of Nigeria and indeed Africa, an issue that the new curriculum is taking care of.
What we have done is to try as much as possible to make it Nigerian history, to teach about the history of Nigerian communities and Nigerian peoples. We have heroes and heroines to teach our children about our place, our traditional institutions, our government institutions, our democracy, how it evolved over time. So that aspect of dwelling so much on colonial and Western history has been reduced by this new move that we are making.
Somehow, the removal of history from the school's curriculum coincided with the disappearance of history books from the bookstands. Hopefully, its reintroduction will also bring about the re-emergence of history books. Victor Azu reporting for Dateline 360.
Very well, Victor. Your conclusion vividly captures the solution to most challenges before majority of Nigerian youth today: identity crisis and a deteriorating reading culture. Well, still staying with the essence of history in planning for the future, let's go over to Nigeria's southeast zone, where Susan Eze is on standby. Susan focuses on if history should be a negotiable subject in a developing nation like Nigeria.
There is an Igbo saying that he who does not know where the rain began to beat him may not know where it stopped. That is, it is important to keep a tag on events as they occur. That is where history comes in. In 1960, when the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, was founded, the Department of History was one of the 6 foundation departments. To further reawaken the historical consciousness of Nigerians, their cultural heritage and indigenous values, archaeological studies was added to the department, and now it is history and international relations.
Nations are formed over several centuries. This university collaborating with Sweden. Sweden has been in place for a countless number of centuries. So therefore there was, initially they were the Vikings, already in all parts of Europe, they have integrated. You see a place like Japan, they were not one people, they were different people, but after wars and so on, they integrated. So it's good to know about wars.
The history of any nation motivates, inspires its citizens, because if you don't know what your predecessors have done, the line they were towing, you may not be able to follow.
The study of history, according to the experts, is non-negotiable if a nation wishes to raise patriotic and responsible citizens.
From primary school onwards, that sense of history should be developed.
Knowledge of a nation's history, how the country emerged, the challenges it faced and how they were overcome, the nation's cultural values, and its relations with other societies, they said, should be taught to the younger generations.
For instance, Israel, the underground tunnel where Israeli soldiers are trained, the walls are frescoed with pictures of the Holocaust. The trainer will tell them, what the training we are giving you is to make sure that this thing never happens to this race again.
As an essential instrument for national and human development, experts say Nigeria must learn to imbibe in its citizens enduring sense of history. The past must be preserved for the benefit of posterity. Can you tell us the reason behind the preservation of this setting within the university campus?
Yeah, the concept is to build a traditional, to replicate our traditional Igbo settlements in the university campus, to at least get people know the values of such a settlement.
The library, especially the history section, is going digitized to keep pace with international trends and to make the materials globally accessible.
Here we have what we call the Biafrana. Biafrana contains all the materials that discuss the Nigeria-Biafra war. And also we have the Achebiana. Achebiana has to do with all the materials written by Chinua Achebe and those written by others, but trying to appraise the work of Chinua Achebe.
Society that wants to improve should know about our history. History is relevant. History instills the sense of nationhood and nationalism.
Beyond the study of history in classrooms, artworks, monuments, relics, and other forms of skilled art that dot the cities have been used as medium of preserving history. Soldier come, soldier go, the barrack remains. I believe you know that saying. Likewise, generations come, generations go. The world remains. It is history that provides the link between the ancient and the modern. In Enugu, Susan Eze for Dateline 360.
True, Susan, to understand this 21st century and beyond, exposing students to a body of knowledge that would enable them appreciate their history as an instrument of nation building, historians say, is not negotiable. Now, at the launch of the history curriculum and teacher's guide, heralding the reintroduction of history as an independent subject at the basic level, the directive was to ensure a deep and positive understanding of Nigerian traditional values and identity, as well as the similarities and differences between diverse Nigerians. With the rich cultural heritage of the Benin Kingdom as a case study, our next report by Agatha Egware Ojo brings us to speed on efforts to pass these values to the next generation.
Edo State, Benin in particular, is blessed with a rich cultural heritage. The people pride themselves in their wealth of history, spanning centuries and recognized beyond the shores of Nigeria and Africa. Conscious of the role history has played in the preservation of the rich cultural heritage of Edo people, the state governor, Godwin Obaseki, about a year ago, announced a reintroduction of history in secondary schools and some selected primary schools in the state.
We have trained about 253 teachers who will teach in secondary and some primary schools, Benin culture, language, and history.
Beyond the teaching of the younger generation in the classroom, there exists in the palace of the Oba of Benin various societies, age groups, and chieftaincy title holders. Apart from carrying out their functions, they document activities for future generations.
Like Iwebo Palace Society, they have a dossier on all the activities of all the Obas that have been in Benin. So, but that is not to the public. Unless you are a member of that society, you are not likely to benefit from that. Obaeware II has announced, has said publicly, has made known to the public his intention to establish a palace museum where all the artifacts, all the historical items, documents, will be kept for people who may wish to know, to visit and learn about the Benin or what made Benin great.
They are, however, suggesting that the government takes concrete steps in the preservation of the rich cultural heritage by making history a compulsory subject like mathematics and English language. These, they say, will keep the younger generation enlightened about their roots and give them a good sense of judgment. For Dateline 360, Agatha Egwaruju.
Thanks, Agatha. Federal government's reintroduction of the subject, I believe, is to ensure the realization of these objectives. And still on efforts to ensure effective implementation of government's move regarding history, Mary Noel Berger in Mina, North Central Nigeria, takes us through strategies by the state government.
Thank you, Hawa. For Niger State to properly key into the federal government policy on the reintroduction of history curriculum in schools, she has gone a step further to establish a teacher professional development institute in the 3 senatorial districts of the state to address the declining status of teaching profession. With me here is the chairperson implementation committee of the Niger State Teacher Development Institute, Hajia Tijebala.
The essence of the institute is to start from the basics. By the end of the 3rd year, no word will say we don't have teachers. We will have teachers and very well qualified teachers.
Niger State Professional Teachers Development Institute is supposed to be an institute where teachers that are already out there could be upgraded. Now that we want to reintroduce history, the subject that we've taught many years ago, we need to bring back those teachers to the institute and then train them so that they can teach this, in the secondary schools.
Concerned about the rot in the education sector, the present administration gave birth to the novel idea to address the decay in the teaching profession as well as the dismal performance of students in public examinations. No little wonder, the state government selected serene environment for the location of the 3 centers to give room for quality teaching and learning. The pilot scheme, which is situated in Mararaban Daudu, about 30 kilometers away from Mina, the Niger State capital, has students drawn from the 274 wards of the state, with each ward providing 1 candidate to have an even spread. Meanwhile, the Niger State government intends to use the return of history to the Nigerian schools to boost the teaching of the subject at the center to address the gap created in the past years, even though this is not without challenges.
The ministry is up to the task. We will immediately organize induction program for those teachers that are going to teach history in our schools.
Expert and critical stakeholders in the education sector also commended the return of history to schools, saying it will add value to teacher education.
To get them to understand better what the heritage of the country is, what the heritage of their people is, with a view to reenacting the values of those heritage, both now and in the future.
However, from the foregoing, you will agree with me that Niger State government is set to commence the implementation of history curriculum in September this year, while a bill to ensure the sustainability of the Teacher Professional Development Institute is before the state legislature for deliberation and consequently passage. Over to you in Abuja, Hawa.
Thanks, Mary. Our follow-up edition will not lose sight of your concern. And to the last but very critical aspect of our focus this week, Lanre Belei has been talking to some stakeholders on the way forward.
The Historical Society of Nigeria in 2005 began a series of moves to bring the subject of history into the school curriculum and the nation. In the new curriculum, historians believe that students should start learning what is happening in their local environment up to the international level.
The syllabus has been produced. We are now sure that come September 2018, our children at those levels will begin to study history. In the past, a student was required to do so much of West African history, African history, and the entire world history. But now from primary elementary 1 to JSS 3, all the students are required to do is focused on Nigerian history. I call it the policy of 3 concentric circles. The first circle deals with the students' immediate environment, the family, the local community, and then the local government area. Then as the student gets more matured and proceeds in class, he begins to engage the state. And then from the state, it engages the entire country, the Nigerian geographical area. So our hope is that a child that schools in the Nigerian school system in the first 9 years would have had sufficient dose of Nigerian history.
Now going to breed a new sense of a new set of Nigerians who ultimately will develop that kind of sense of history that will lead to a new Nigeria, a new consciousness, a consciousness of the country, a consciousness of the self, consciousness of the values of society. So people should no longer look at history as the story of the rise and fall of empires, but as that field, as that discipline that allows humans to understand what it means to live in a human society. So if you develop science and technology and then you neglect history, then of course you are likely to develop a society that has no value for humanity.
Historians argued that teaching history in classrooms is not about telling stories. It's about identity. That is who you are, where you're from. As the saying goes, a river that forgets its source will eventually dry up. In Ibadan, Henry Gbeleyi reporting for Dateline 360.
With current commitment by government in ensuring the right foundation is laid, I dare say, Lanre, this river of future Nigerians will not dry up. Many thanks. No doubt, reports showcased in this edition to a large extent leave no room for doubts regarding the importance of history to nation building, national identity, patriotism, and above all, total human development. Even the legal profession, which prides itself as the exclusive preserve of the learned, rely on cases addressed in the past. We would appreciate your take on our platforms, Dateline 360 at nta.ng or at NTA News Now. As Winston Churchill captures it, history will be kind to me, for I intend to write it. We're writing it on Dateline 360. Many thanks for your time, and bye for now.